Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. Today is day 3 of Narnia week and I'm really excited about this one because we are going to be reading the first chapter of my personal favorite Narnia book, The Horse and His Boy by C.S. Lewis. So if you haven't watched the first 2 days of Narnia week, or if you're new here, Narnia week is me reading you the first chapter of each Narnia book each day to convince you to read it and also give you a few like fun little tidbits along the way. So we've already done 2 days so far. We did chapter 1 of The Magician's Nephew, and then day 2 was The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. So if you're not caught up, go ahead and catch up. So this week is going to be fun, and we're not even like half done with it just yet. So let's get into it. So today, I actually teased this yesterday in my Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe video. I said that I had a unique reading order idea. So if you don't know what that's about, um, the Chronicles of Narnia has like a lot of different reading orders, and there's like a lot of different ones that have been proposed by like scholars, historians who, like study C.S. Lewis and stuff like that. And I talked about those in my previous 2 videos I read from the Companion to Narnia. It's a really interesting book. It has a lot of cool facts and stuff in it. And in this one, it gave not two, four different like reading orders that have been proposed. And the one that is like the most widely accepted one, it's even the one that like has, to the effect where like the numbers on the spines reflect this now. So the widely accepted one is you have Magician's Nephew, you have Lion, Horse's Boy, Prince Caspian, Voyage, Silver Chair, and The Last Battle. So that's the widely accepted one. But there are quite a few other ones, and I talked about those in my previous videos. I'm not going to rehash them right now. However, I am going to tell you about one that I came up with, and I actually tested this reading order. And sorry, making sure my mic is where it needs to be. Um, but a reading order that I would call it a micro reading order because it's not the whole series. Like I don't have like, well, actually I do, but um hint hint, I will be giving you guys a my own kind of funny reading order at the end of this Narnia week. So stay tuned and watch every day to find out what that is. But I have what's called a micro reading order that only involves 2 books, and you can probably guess maybe which ones those two are. And it's these two. It's The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, and Horse and His Boy. Sorry if I look a little bit like kind of flushed and stuff. It's because I literally just helped my mom bring down lots of Christmas decorations and stuff. We're not decorating today. We just were like, let's get them down and then we'll slowly decorate as the week goes on. So I'm just like really, really just from all of that. But anyway, sorry, I'm a little all over the place this morning. I'm like wanting to make sure I get all the things that I wanted to say out before I get to the first chapter of this book. So, what I meant by micro, like reading order, or like, yeah, that, um, it's because if you've read The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, you'll know that at the end of it, and I actually have a little placeholder right here. So you'll know that at the end of The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, spoiler, but not really spoiler because these books have been out for a very long time. At the end of The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe, it says that the 4 children, Peter, Susan, Edmund, and Lucy, they become kings and queens of Narnia and they rule for many years. And they kind of, in a way, they kind of like forget their lives back on Earth. They just become these kings and queens. And it says that they had like many adventures and like, he kind of gives an example of like all the different things that they, did during their reign and stuff like that. And then obviously it tells like how they stumbled back through the wardrobe and they end up being children again and like the professor's there and stuff like that. But the horse and his boy is really interesting because sorry, um, sorry, I have a window right here and I can like see who's driving past the house and I'm just like, okay, it's okay. But so the horse and his boy is, I would say, like one of the most unique stories in Narnia because it takes place in the middle of, well, not really the middle, but takes place kind of during that epilogue of The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe. It takes place during the Golden Age when the Pevensies were ruling in Narnia. So it's a really interesting, time for them. And but it's not really centered on them. They're just side characters. Is about a boy who is escaping slavery and trying to get to Narnia with a talking horse named Bree, which we'll get to it. But yeah, so it's kind of like a very, kind of interesting because it takes place during that time. And a few years ago, I was rereading The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, and I was like, what if I did like a weird thing where I didn't finish The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, but instead I just stopped at a certain point during that last chapter, and that's chapter 17. And then I just started reading The Horse and His Boy. And then as soon as I finished The Horse and His Boy, I just read the rest of that last chapter. And you're probably thinking, like, what? That's kind of weird. And yeah, but it's true. I kind of wanted to see, like, I wanted to give myself, like, kind of a change in my reading experience because I had read these books so many times. And honestly, I think it's kind of a fun, unusual way of reading the books, especially if you're someone who's like, oh, I want to read them in exact chronological order as the events of the books happen. Hey, there's someone out there that probably wants to do that. And so I'm going to give you guys the exact like example of like when to stop in during the ending of this book. So basically, it's the very last chapter, which is called, yes, chapter 17, The Hunting of the White Stag. And so it's during the part where C.S. Lewis is describing, like the kings and queens and all that stuff. He's describing, like, oh, yes, King Peter was called King Peter the Magnificent. And he's kind of talking about, like, oh, yes, they grew and became, like he's talking about the queens, how they grew and became these beautiful women and, all the things. And so after you get past that paragraph where he's describing what their subjects call them. So, like the very last sentence, for example, of that paragraph says that the people called her Queen Lucy the Valiant. So they end with Lucy right here, the description. And then all you need to do is read this exact sentence here. Oh, sorry, my nose is itchy. So they lived in great joy, and if ever they remembered their life in this world, it was only as one remembers a dream. Stop. Go and read The Horse and His Boy. And as soon as you finish reading The Horse and His Boy, come back and pick up at that sentence right after that says, and one year it fell out that Tumnus, who was a middle aged fawn by now and beginning to be stout, came down river and brought them news that the white stag had once more appeared in his parts, the white stag who would give you wishes if you caught him. So there you go. And then you just like would continue on from there. Because as soon as you stop at that line, as only one remembers a dream, then it immediately goes off to, okay, now we're getting news of the white stag. So, oh, I'm so sorry. All that dust got kicked up when I was in the attic. So, but yeah, it was like a weird thing that I decided to try one time. And honestly, it was a really fun reading experience. It was kind of weird because you would literally stop in the middle of like a chapter kind of like after an awkward sentence, but it's kind of cool. So I don't know if you're kind of weird like me, you like kind of doing stuff like that, go right ahead. Um, as for any other facts about The Horse and His Boy, I don't really have much to say because unfortunately it has not been adapted for the film. And I sincerely hope that if it is adapted for the film, it's not directed by Greta Gerwig, if you know what I mean. I'm not going to go into that because I already had a rant about that in my Magician's Nephew video. So go watch that. I think I'm also going to have the links to the previous videos. Well, actually, I'm going to have the link to a playlist for Narnia Week down in the description so you can go watch those previous videos. But The Horse and His Boy has been adapted, unfortunately not for the screen, obviously, but it has been adapted into an audio drama along with the all of the Chronicles of Narnia by Focus on the Family Radio Theater. That one, oh, I remember listening to that for the first time and it changed my brain chemistry. It just changed how I like listened to stories. It was just one of the most amazing stories I had ever heard or read. And I just remember like one of my fondest childhood memories is I love horses as a kid. I still do. And I had a lot of like toys that were like horses and stuff. And I had like these two particular horses that like I think if you like move their leg, their like head would bow and it would make a like they make a neighing sound. And I had like a cowboy and a cowgirl and I would pretend that they were the characters in The Horse and His Boy as I was listening to it and I would play it out. Oh my gosh. I really hope that my mom still has those toys somewhere in the attic because I really want to be able to pass those on to my kids one day because it's just the memories, the nostalgia, all the things. And this is one thing. This is a product, and the next thing that it has been adapted into is a stage play by the Logos Theater. I mentioned that in my last video, the day two video. I had mentioned that Logos Theater, they are a Christian production company. They do these fantastic plays. I've seen them do like yeah, fantastic plays, and they are currently trying to adapt all of the Chronicles of Narnia for the stage. And they have done The Horse and His Boy. I don't know exactly which production they're in now because I think they've also brought back their older productions. So like they've done Lion Witch and the Wardrobe a few times. They've done Prince Caspian from what I understand. And they have done The Horse and His Boy. And oh my gosh, I desperately want to see it. Again, I think maybe I'll make Narnia Week a little bit of a campaign to go to the Logos Theater Instagram and or website, contact them and kindly, I might say, do not bully them, but kindly suggest that they put all of their Narnia productions on demand on their website because, newsflash, they do have a lot of their old productions on demand on their website, but none of the Narnia ones. Hashtag Logos stop gatekeeping Narnia, please, because some of us can't afford to fly out to whatever locations you are on tour or in your hometown and see your productions. We really are dying to see these. So please go. So, and I will be leaving the link to their website and Instagram in the description of each Narnia Day video that comes after this one. I think I left in the description of day two as well. But yeah, make it happen. So, anyway, that being said, I'm so excited because this one is like one of my favorite books ever. Alrighty, so we're just going to be reading you chapter one of The Horse and His Boy. Absolutely love this book. I really wish that C.S. Lewis were still alive so I could tell him exactly how much these books mean to me. Alrighty. Chapter 1. How Shasta Set Out on His Travels. This is the story of an adventure that happened in Narnia and Calormen and the lands between, in the Golden Age when Peter was High King in Narnia, and his brothers and his two sisters were king and queens under him. In those days, far south in Calormen, on a little creek of the sea, there lived a poor fisherman called Arshish, and with him there lived a boy who called him father. The boy's name was Shasta. On most days, Arshish went out in his boat to fish in the morning, and in the afternoon he harnessed his donkey to a cart and loaded the cart with fish, and went a mile or so southward to the village to sell it. If it had sold well, he would come home in a moderately good temper and say nothing to Shasta. But if it had sold badly, he would find fault with him and perhaps beat him. There was always something to find fault with Shasta, or to find fault with, for Shasta had plenty of work to do, mending and washing the nets, cooking the supper, and cleaning the cottage in which they lived. Shasta was not at all interested in anything that lay south of his home, because he had once or twice been to the village with Arshish, and he knew that there was nothing very interesting there. In the village he only met other men who were just like his father, men with long dirty robes and wooden shoes turned up at the toe, and turbans on their heads and beards, talking to one another very slowly about things that sounded dull. I feel like that's like with every child. And like older people, it's just like, okay. But he was very interested in everything that lay to the north because no one ever went that way, and he was never allowed to go there himself. When he was sitting out of doors, mending the nets and all alone, he would often look eagerly to the north. One could see nothing but a grassy slope running up to a level ridge, and beyond that, the sky, with perhaps a few birds in it. Sometimes, if Arshish was there, Shasta would say, "Oh, my father, what is there beyond the hill? Or what is there beyond that hill?" And then, if the fisherman was in a bad temper, he would box Shasta's ears and tell him to attend to his work. Or if he was in a peaceable mood, he would say, "Oh, my son, do not allow your mind to be distracted by idle questions. For one of the poets has said, 'Application to business is the root of prosperity, but those who ask questions that do not concern them are steering the ship of folly toward the rock of indigence.'" Shasta thought that beyond the hill there must be something or some delightful secret which his father wished to hide from him. In reality, however, the fisherman talked like this because he didn't know what lay to the north. Neither did he care. He had a very practical mind. One day, there came from the south a stranger who was unlike any man Shasta had seen before. He rode upon a strong dappled horse with a flowing mane and tail, and his stirrups and bridle were inlaid with silver. The spike of a helmet projected from the middle of his silken turban, and he wore a shirt of chain mail. By his side hung a curving scimitar. A round shield studded with bosses of brass hung at his back, and his right hand grasped a lance. His face was dark, but this did not surprise Shasta, because all the people of Clorman are like that. What did surprise him was the man's beard was dyed crimson, and curled and gleaming with scented oil. But Arshish knew by the gold on the stranger's arm that he was a Tarkan, or a great lord, and he bowed, kneeling before him till his beard touched the earth, and made signs to Shasta to kneel also. The stranger demanded hospitality for the night, which of course the fisherman dared not refuse. All the best they had was set before the Tarkan for supper, and he didn't think much of it. And Shasta, as always happened when the fisherman had company, was given a hunk of bread and turned out of the cottage. On these occasions he usually slept with the donkey in its little thatched stable, but it was much too early to go to sleep yet, and Shasta, who had never learned that it is wrong to listen behind doors, sat down with his ear to a crack in the wooden wall of the cottage to hear what the grown-ups were talking about. And this is what he heard. Also, have this beautiful, hope you guys can see it. I love these illustrations. These are the Pauline Baines illustrations, and in these editions, by the way, they are colored. Very, very pretty. And this is what he heard. "And now, O my host," said the Tarkan, "I have a mind to buy that boy of yours." "Oh, my master," replied the fisherman, and Shasta knew by the wheeling tone the greedy look that was probably coming into his face as he said it. "What price could induce your servant, poor though he is, to sell into slavery his only child, and his own flesh? Has not one of the poets said, 'Natural affection is stronger than soup, and offspring more precious than carbuncles'?" "It is even so," replied the guest dryly. "But another poet has likewise said, 'He who attempts to deceive the judicious is already bearing his own back for the scourge.' Do not load your aged mouth with falsehoods. This boy is manifestly no son of yours, for your cheek is as dark as mine, but the boy is fair and white like the accursed but beautiful barbarians who inhabit the remote north." "How well it was said," answered the fisherman, "that swords can be kept off with shields, but the eye of wisdom pierces through every defense. Know then, O my formidable guest, that because of my extreme poverty I have never married, and have no child, but in that same year in which the Tisroc, may he live forever, began his august and beneficent reign, on a night when the moon was at her full, it pleased the gods to deprive me of my sleep. Therefore I arose from my bed in this hovel, and went forth to the beach to refresh myself with looking upon the water and the moon and breathing the cool air. And presently I heard a noise as of oars coming to me across the water, and then, as it were, a weak cry. And shortly after, the tide brought to the land a little boat, in which there was nothing but a man, lean with extreme hunger and thirst, who seemed to have died but a few moments before, for he was still warm, and an empty water-skin, and a child still living. Doubtless, I said, these unfortunates have escaped from the wreck of a great ship, but by the admirable designs of the gods, the elder has starved himself to keep the child alive, and has perished in sight of land. Accordingly, remembering how the gods never fail to reward those who befriend the destitute, and being moved by compassion, for your servant is a man of tender heart. Leave out all these idle words in your own praise, interrupted the Tarchon. It is enough to know that you took the child, and have had 10 times the worth of his daily bread out of him in labor, as anyone can see. And now, tell me at once what price you put on him, for I am wearied with your loquacity. You yourself have wisely said, answered Arshish, that the boy's labor has been to me of inestimable value. Oh my god, guys. Inestimable, oh my god, the value is without fathom, guys. Without fathom. If you know what that's from, I'm so sorry. Sometimes words just don't let me pronounce them the way I want to. It's okay. Continuing on. This must be taken into account in fixing the price, for if I sell the boy, I must undoubtedly either buy or hire another to do his work. I'll give you 15 crescents for him, said the Tarchon. 15! Cried Arshish in a voice that was something between a whine and a scream. 15! For the prop of my old age and the delight of my eyes. Do not mock my grey beard, Tarchon though you may be. My price is 70. At this point, Shasta got up and tiptoed away. He had heard all he wanted, for he had often listened when men were bargaining in the village and knew how it was done. He was quite certain that Arshish would sell him in the end for something much more than 15 crescents, and much less than 70, but that he and the Tarchon would take hours in getting to an agreement. You must not imagine what Shasta felt at all as you and I would feel if we had just overheard our parents talking about selling us for slaves. For one thing, his life was already little better than slavery. For all he knew, the lordly stranger on the great horse might be kinder to him than Arshish. For another, the story about his own discovery in the boat had filled him with excitement and with a sense of relief. He had often been uneasy because, try as he might, he had never been able to love the fisherman, and he knew that a boy ought to love his father. And now, apparently, he was no relation to Arshish at all. That took a great weight off his mind. Why, I might be anyone, he thought. I might be the son of a Tarchon myself, or the son of the Tisroc, may he live forever, or of a god. He was standing out in the grassy place before the cottage while he thought these things. Twilight was coming on apace, and a star or two was already out, but the remains of the sunset could still be seen in the west. Not far away, the stranger's house, not far away, the stranger's horse, loosely tied to an iron ring in the wall of the donkey's stable, was grazing. Shasta strolled over to it and patted its neck. It went on tearing up the grass and took no notice of him. Then another thought came into Shasta's mind. I wonder what sort of man the Tarchon is, he said aloud. It would be splendid if he was kind. Some of the slaves in a great lord's house have next to nothing to do. They wear lovely clothes and eat meat every day. Perhaps he'd take me to the wars, and I'd save his life in a battle, and then he'd set me free, and adopt me as his son, and give me a palace, and a chariot, and a suit of armor. But then he might be a horrid, cruel man. He might send me to work on the fields, in chains. I wish I knew. How can I know? I bet this horse knows. If only he could tell me. The horse had lifted its head. Shasta stroked its smooth as satin nose, and said, I wish you could talk, old fellow. And then, for a second, he thought he was dreaming, for quite distinctly, though in a low voice, the horse said, But I can. Shasta stared into its great eyes, and his own grew almost as big with astonishment. However, did you learn to talk? He asked. Hush, not so loud, replied the horse. Where I come from, nearly all the animals talk. Wherever is that? Asked Shasta. Narnia, answered the horse. The happy land of Narnia. Narnia of the heatherly mountains and the thymy downs. Narnia of the many rivers, the plashing glens, the mossy caverns, and the deep forests ringing with the hammer of the dwarves. Ah, the sweet air of Narnia! An hour's life there is better than 1,000 years in Calormen. It ended with a whinny that sounded very much like a sigh. Oh, how did you get here? Said Shasta. Kidnapped, said the horse, or stolen, or captured, whichever you like to call it. I was only a foal at the time. My mother warned me not to range the southern slopes into Archenland and beyond, but I wouldn't heed her, and by the lion's mane I have paid for my folly. All these years I have been a slave to humans, hiding my true nature and pretending to be dumb and witless like their horses. Why didn't you tell them who you were? Not such a fool, that's why. If they'd once found out that I could talk, they would have made a show of me at fairs and guarded me more carefully than ever. My last chance of escape would have been gone. And why? Began Shasta, but the horse interrupted him. Now look, it said. We mustn't waste time on idle questions. You want to know about my master, the Tarkan Androden. Well, he's bad. Not too bad for me, for a war horse costs too much to be treated very badly. But you'd better be lying dead tonight than go to be a human slave in his house tomorrow. Then I'd better run away, said Shasta, turning very pale. Yes, you had, said the horse, but why not run away with me? Are you going to run away too? Said Shasta. Yes, if you'll come with me, answered the horse. This is the chance for both of us. You see, if I run away without a rider, everyone who sees me will say stray horse and come after me as quick as he can. With a rider, I've a chance to get through. That's where you can help me. On the other hand, you can't get very far on those two silly legs of yours. What absurd legs humans have, without being overtaken. But on me, you can outdistance any other horse in this country. That's where I can help you. By the way, I suppose you know how to ride. Oh, yes, of course, said Shasta. At least, I've ridden the donkey. Ridden the what? Retorted the horse with extreme contempt. At least, that is what he meant. Actually, it came out as a sort of neigh. Ridden the what? Talking horses always sound more horsey in accent than when they are angry. In other words, it continued, you can't ride. That's a drawback. I'll have to teach you as we go along. If you can't ride, can you fall? I suppose anyone can fall, said Shasta. I mean, can you fall and get up again without crying and mount again and fall again and yet not be afraid of falling? I'll try, said Shasta. Poor little beast, said the horse in a gentler tone. I forgot you're only a foal. We'll make a fine rider of you in no time. And now we mustn't start until those two in the hut are asleep. Meantime, we can make our plans. My Takan is on his way to the north, to the great city, to Tashbaan itself, and the court of the Tisroc. I say, put in Shasta, in a rather shocked voice, oughtn't you say, may he live forever? Why? Asked the horse. I'm a free Narnian, and why should I talk slaves and fools talk? I don't want him to live forever, and I know that he's not going to live forever, whether I want him to or not. And I can see that you're the free, and I can see you're from the free north too. No more of this southern jargon between you and me. And now, back to our plans. As I said, my human was on his way north to Tashbaan. Does that mean we'd better go south? I think not, said the horse. You see, he thinks I'm dumb and witless like his other horses. Now, if I really were, the moment I got loose, I'd go back home to my stable and paddock, back to his palace, which is 2 days' journey south. That's where he'll look for me. He'd never dream of my going north on my own. And anyway, he'll probably think that someone in the last village who saw him ride through has followed us here and stolen me. Oh, hurrah! Said Shasta. Then we'll go north. I've been longing to go to the north all my life. Of course you have, said the horse. That's because of the blood that's in you. I'm sure you're true northern stock. But not too loud. I should think they'd be asleep soon now. I better creep back and see, suggested Shasta. That's a good idea, said the horse. But take care you're not caught. It was a good deal darker now, and very silent except for the sound of the waves on the beach, which Shasta hardly noticed, because he had been hearing it day and night as long as he could remember. The cottage, as he approached it, showed no light. When he listened at the front, there was no noise. When he went round to the only window, he could hear, after a second or two, the familiar noise of the old fisherman's squeaky snore. It was funny to think that if all went well, he would never hear it again. Holding his breath and feeling a little bit sorry, but much less sorry than he was glad, Shasta glided away over the grass and went to the donkey's stable, groped along to a place he knew where the key was hidden, opened the door, and found the horse's saddle and bridle, which had been locked up for the night. He bent forward and kissed the donkey's nose. I'm sorry we can't take you, he said. There you are at last, said the horse when he got back to it. I was beginning to wonder what had become of you. I was getting your things out of the stable, replied Shasta. And now, can you tell me how to put them on? For the next few minutes, Shasta was at his work very cautiously to avoid jingling, while the horse said things like, Get that girth a bit tighter, or You'll find a buckle lower down, or You'll need to shorten those stirrups a good bit. When all was finished, it said, Now, we've got to have reins for the look of the thing, but you won't be using them. Tie them to the saddle bow, very slack, so that I can do what I like with my head. And remember, you are not to touch them. What are they for, then? Asked Shasta. Ordinarily, they are for directing me, replied the horse. But as I intend to do all the directing on this journey, you'll please keep your hands to yourself. And there's another thing. I'm not going to have you grabbing my mane. But I say, replied Shasta, if I'm not to hold on by the reins, or by your mane, what am I to hold on by? You hold on with your knees, said the horse. That's the secret of good riding. Grip my body between your knees as hard as you like. Sit up straight, straight as a poker. Keep your elbows in. And by the way, what did you do with the spurs? Put them on my heels, of course, said Shasta. I do know that much. Then you can take them off and put them in the saddle-bag. We may be able to sell them when we get to Tashbaan. Ready? And now I think you can get up. Also, why can't he just, side note, why can't he just, like, grab onto, like, the saddle bow, like, the horn thing? Like, right? He can hold on by that? I don't know. Whatever. Though I always thought of that when I was a kid. I was like, hold on to the horn, the saddle thing? Yeah, I don't know. Oh, you're a dreadful height, gasped Shasta after his first and unsuccessful attempt. I'm a horse, that's all, was the reply. Anyone would think I was a haystack from the way you're trying to climb up me. There, that's better. Now sit up and remember what I told you about your knees. Funny to think of me, funny to think of me, who has led cavalry charges and won races, having a potato sack like you in the saddle. However, off we go, it chuckled, not unkindly. It certainly began their night journey with great caution. First of all, it went just south of the fisherman's cottage to the little river, which was which there ran into the sea, and took care to leave in the mud some very plain hoof marks pointing south. But as soon as they were in the middle of the ford, it turned upstream and waited till they were about 100 yards further inland than the cottage. Then it selected a nice gravelly bit of bank, which would take no footprints, and came out on the northern side. Then, still at a walking pace, it went northward till the cottage, the one tree, donkey stable, and the creek, Everything, in fact, that Shasta had ever known had sunk out of sight in the gray summer night darkness. They had been going uphill, and now were at the top of the ridge which had always been the boundary of Shasta's known world. He could not see what was ahead except that it was all open and grassy. It looked endless, wild and lonely and free. "I say," observed the horse, "what a great place for a gallop, eh?" "Oh, don't let's," said Shasta. "Not yet. I don't know how to. Please, horse, I don't know your name." Bree. Sorry, that's my attempt at saying his name. It's Brihihini Brini. Yeah, I don't know. Try to pronounce that for yourself, guys. I'm having fun with this, said the horse. So, anyway, yeah, said the horse. "Oh, I'll never be able to say that," said Shasta. "Can I call you Bree?" "Well, if it's the best you can do, I suppose you must," said the horse. "And what shall I call you?" "I'm called Shasta." "Hmm," said the horse. "Well, now, there's a name that's really hard to pronounce. But now, about this gallop. It's a good deal easier than trotting if you only knew, because you don't have to rise and fall. Grip with your knees and keep your eyes straight ahead between my ears. Don't look at the ground. If you think you're going to fall, just grip harder and sit up straighter. Ready? Now, for Narnia and the North." There we go. That definitely took me a lot longer, and I'm just realizing this is probably going to be one of the longest videos in the series. But I hope you guys enjoyed that. I hope that it made you have a better appreciation for The Horse and His Boy, because it truly is my favorite one. I just love the adventure that's in it, and I'm definitely going to have to do a reread soon. But anyway, just thank you guys so much for watching. Don't forget to check the links down in the description for all the different things that I mentioned earlier. And yeah, I will see you guys in day 4, where I read the first chapter of Prince Caspian. And I just hope you guys have a wonderful day. God bless. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye. Mwah.